So our fifth yoga tool is football, and while this technique can be found all over the internet, it's something that I learned from Forbes in a workshop about yoga for empaths. And so I want to introduce this as a self-care practice and also a practice that you can teach to other people, and that we can think about this as taking care of our feet and taking care of ourselves. And of course, the feet are pretty complex parts of our bodies, and so we're really just scratching the surface here. And I hope you'll explore and perhaps dig a little bit deeper as well. So we can start with a little bit of humor here with the podiatry hyperbole. My feet are killing me, right? I'm going to guess that maybe most of us have said this at one time or another in our lives. And those of you who are working as nurses spend a lot of time on your feet, so you may say this pretty often. And it's not just our feet that are causing us pain, but that pain can radiate up and through our bodies. Because our feet are connected to our entire body through our skeletal and muscular systems and our nervous system, it's part of that whole body kind of approach. In our culture, our footwear often supports and protects us, so it keeps us from getting that kind of full foot experience on the earth, for instance, and strengthening our feet in natural ways. And also our footwear greatly harms us. If we think about cute shoes and the damage that cute shoes do, and high heels, and the way in which this kind of footwear can actually literally restructure our bodies, right, from that kind of footwear. So that kind of protection, but also this great harm that comes at the cost of fashion, for instance. And like I mentioned, we spend very little time barefoot. Some of us more than others, but if you think about how much time we actually spend with direct connection between our feet and our earth, in our culture, very little. In yoga, we ground through our feet. We think about rooting into the earth, and we can think about this energetically, this kind of grounding sensation and feeling, and the way in which we use that as a solid base for other parts of yoga that we do, whether that's physical poses or that grounding in order to do meditation or whatever that might be. So the feet, really important. And of course, it can get so much more super complicated. And these are just illustrations to show, all of those little tiny pieces and interworking parts. I'm not going to pretend to know the anatomy of the feet, the tendon sheaths of the ankle, and etc. But again, we can get a sense of just the complexity of the feet. And maybe that's one of the reasons why they cause us so much pain, perhaps. We can also connect this into reflexology, and so more into kind of Eastern medicines. This is just one of many different illustrations of reflexology, and I like this one just because it actually puts the kind of physical representations of the different body parts on the feet. So that reflexology, science and art of reflexology, that helps to tap into the rest of the body's systems through the feet. We're going to simplify this a little bit for the purposes of this exercise of football, and just maybe think a little bit about the arches of the feet. And I often just refer to this as like the inner arch and the outer arch. You can see them from the side here, and then that transverse arch that goes across the foot. So as we look at this exercise of football, we might keep these shapes in mind, these lines in mind. So football, most simply, is just standing on one leg, your supporting leg, so slight bend in that leg. This can also be done sitting. You're not going to get quite as much potential pressure through sitting, but it can also be done seated and still be effective. So for this exercise, you can use your balance and just have one foot on the earth, one foot on the tennis ball, and be moving the tennis ball. Or you can actually place a hand on the wall, a full arm on the wall. You can lean into the wall. You can place a hand on a chair. So either for grounding or for balance. And when I learned this technique, we did it with a hand or a forearm on the wall for that kind of grounding sensation. But usually when I teach it in class, I'm teaching it as more of that kind of balance exercise as well. So basically you place the tennis ball underneath your foot and you roll it around. When I teach this technique in class, I do a bunch of other little things and explain a bunch of things, but at its simplest, football is just put that ball under your foot, roll it around. If it feels good, keep doing it. If it doesn't feel good, stop doing it. So as we do football, some other things that we can think about are, for instance, pressing into the ball using as much or as little pressure as feels good to you. So this is in part where we kind of think about boundaries. So we don't want to press too hard and hurt ourselves. And we don't want to press too little and not get the benefits and sensations from football. So you have to judge, you have to monitor that for yourself. You might target one spot on your foot as you do football, or you might aim for kind of more of a full foot massage. As you roll that ball, you might roll forward and backward, and you'll see a lot of the illustrations online with a little arrow going forward and backward on the foot. But you can also go forward, backward, small or big. You can go side to side, or you can go in little circles. So I really like to do like little circles under the ball of my foot or on the heel, for instance. You can also not have that kind of rolling movement, but you can kind of just press and release. That can be done anywhere on the foot, but you might press and release, for instance, under each toe and kind of isolate each toe as you stretch through the toes. You can target that press and release along those lines of the arches that I just looked at in the last slide. You can, again, target each little spot and move on. And like I just said, following the lines of the inner arch or the outer arch or that medial arch. And you can also focus on the heel or the ball of the foot, for instance. When you do football, you might do one foot for as long as it feels good, and then you feel done, and then you move to the next one. Or you might do one foot, and then you might just pause and bring both feet back to the earth in like a mountain pose, and just spread your feet and just pause and just notice how your feet feel. So you might notice that the foot that you've rolled feels different from the foot that you have not yet rolled. But again, this is just noticing. It's not judging. It's not trying to get any kind of specific results from this activity. What you might find from football is you might find a little bit of crunchiness in the foot as you break up the fascia. You might feel tightness. You might feel pain. And again, if the pain is bad pain, we want to stop. You might feel a reduction of foot pain, sometimes immediately. You might feel a reduction in low back pain or hip pain, again, sometimes immediately or sometimes accumulating from practicing this football technique regularly. When we do football, we're also tapping into the parasympathetic nervous system. So you might feel more relaxed. You might build immunity. You might feel less stress and less anxiety. Again, there's no shoulds here. There's no definites. This is one of many techniques that you can try for yourself, that you can play with, and see the results that you got. When I do football with people, I often tell them that you might fall in love instantly with football, or it might take a few times to do the practice before you understand and find those benefits. When I was introduced to football, it was an immediate, I immediately fell in love with it. But when I've taught it to other people, I've had people who they've been in class and they've done football several times. And then, for instance, it wasn't until they went for a hike and all of a sudden they had this little bit of foot pain and they start doing football and they go, oh, wow, like that's what football is all about. Okay. So again, try it out, play with it, find out what works for you, and hopefully you can fall in love with it. And it's something that you can do as a part of a regular yoga practice. It's something that you can do on a break at work. It's something that you can do seated at your desk during a Zoom meeting. Maybe you're doing it right now. I should be doing it right now. We should all do it right now. Let's go do some football.